Hello brothers and sisters, we meet again about the Financial Freedom series. For those of you who are listening to our podcast for the first time, if you find the content is good, you can click subscribe and click the bell so YouTube will notify you of future episodes released. And continuing the previous episode, today I share with you a new stage, which is the stage of setting up cash flow and starting to accumulate. To build this model, you need to set up 4 accounts. At this point, perhaps some of you are surprised that there are 4 fake accounts. Actually, this is a model I have expanded a lot, but actually the model I am setting up for myself is total. It has up to 12 accounts. The model I'm using is probably more effective because in addition to helping me manage more complex cash flows, it also helps me optimize a number of other aspects, such as tax deductions, for example, or financial scores are very important and some other advantages as well. However, my model is very complicated, and if I were to tell it all, it would take several days to complete, and most of you are still at the beginning stage. Firstly, you guys don't have the need for complicated management like me. Secondly, if you only show you the model that is too complicated from the beginning without those full meanings, it will be easy to do things. You get confused and in the end you don't have the motivation to do it. So the model I want to share with you is a model that is simple enough but also enough for you. If you have a smooth start, later on you can upgrade to more complex models if you want. Then specifically, what is the setup method besides the main account, which is the emergency fund salary account? As I mentioned in the previous episode, now you guys set up 2 more accounts for me. One you set is sinking fund, rainy day fund. And another one is investment account. Then I will solve it now. Like each one, I have instructed you to open an emergency fund account, but I have not explained what its purpose is and how to tag it. The emergency fund is an account. Accumulated, but it can only be used in emergency situations, meaning that problems fall from the sky somewhere that we cannot foresee. Suddenly one fine morning your company is dissolved or someone in your family has to go to the hospital, or even worse, you yourself have to go to the hospital, so you can no longer continue working. At times like these, we need to ask for help from these emergency fund accounts, and after this emergency fund account has been set up, it's considered that you've forgotten it only in cases of necessity. If there is any other mandatory option to use it, it's not like my computer is broken and I have to fix it urgently. No, in that case it's not an emergency. Unless that computer is the main tool to make money for you. But even then you have another source to handle this problem. The way to calculate the target emergency fund is based on the minimum spending level that we calculated in step 4. From there we will calculate the runway for ourselves. Now the next question is how much runway is suitable for an emergency fund. My advice is at least 6 months, ideally 12 months. Specifically, in our current example, the minimum spending level is $1,900 per month. Then in 6 months it will be equivalent to $11,400 or more ideally. 12 months will be $22,800. Now the next question is, where is the money to fund the emergency fund? If you fund this fund, you will continue to live your life exactly the same as before, that is, still living in the same place. The good news is that you have been living at this level for a while now, so hopefully you have gotten used to that way of life, so if you continue to live like that now, it will probably be the same. It's not too difficult, meaning that every month the emergency fund account will be pumped another $600, so on until we can fully pump the account according to the target we just set above. For example, if you set a runway goal of 6 months, equivalent to $3,600, each month you pump in $600, meaning it will take you a total of about 12 months to build this emergency fund. If you choose a 12-month runway goal, it will take you a total of 24 months to fully fill the emergency fund. If you hear about 24 months, some of you will start to feel a bit discouraged. It took 6 months to pay off the debt, but now it takes another 2 years to build an emergency fund. Back then, I even added a sinking fund and an investment account, but doing those extra things only got me half the way. I don't know what life will take to reach that stage of financial freedom, but you can rest assured that this financial journey will increase in a way that at first it will progress very slowly, but it will get better day by day. With time, everything will progress faster, which is why I repeat the word patience over and over again, which is the key factor for us to make this journey to financial freedom. And now let's go back to the story we were talking about. There is one way. If we speed this up a bit, it will return to the story of reducing expenses and increasing revenue. Reducing expenses here means you go back to your Blanchip and review to see if there are any types of expenses in there that we can eliminate or not cut. The more surplus you will have, and from there you can save money. You can switch to the monthly accumulated follow. In the emergency fund part, it reduces expenses. Increasing income means that in addition to your main job, you can add another source of income. For example, you can receive working as a freelancer or doing other work outside of work hours are the only two legal ways. Even if the illegal way is still in these two groups. Now if you go and rob a bank, it will happen. Also working overtime, I'm joking in this part. Don't share that I told you to rob a bank in this podcast. I'll die. Then there is the emergency fund. Besides the emergency fund, we have another one, which is the sinking fund. There are many places that say rain day fund. In fact, there are many definitions in these funds. Each place has a slightly different definition. It's quite confusing. I will give you my own definition, which I think is quite reasonable and clear. For me, the difference is between a sinking fund and an emergency fund. That is the emergency fund. It will be used for unforeseen force majeure cases that are not in your plans, and the sinking fund is the expected expenses that are in your plans. For example, my siblings' spending plan is that they plan to change their computer this year, or they will renovate their house, or they will buy a camera to do additional photography services to increase their income. Income, for example, all of these are long-term expenditures. They are not everyday spending, but, if they are planned in advance, these items are deducted from the sinking fund and are not emergency funds. The emergency fund is only used in force majeure cases such as job loss or illness, as I mentioned earlier, so that's why there are two ways to set up the target for the sinking fund. Firstly, it depends on the plan that you need to spend in the coming time, and from there you can calculate the necessary amount. For example, this year you need to buy a camera. $1,000 and $3,000 to repair the house, and the total amount you need is $4,000. The second way is that you don't know what you will need to spend. So you guys set a goal for about 3 to 6 months of runway based on the minimum spending level we had in step 4. When you need to divide something, take it from this amount. After spending money, you must immediately have a plan to rebuild this account so that it becomes full again like the old account. According to the example so far, in this second case, I will set a goal for this sinking fund from about 3 to 6 months, meaning from about $4,000 to $8,000, and if we keep going at the current rate of $600 per month, you will need about 6 to 12 more months. Another month to fill the last sinking fund. Once these two funds have been filled, you will continue to pump into the investment account, which is an investment account, but this investment account does not have one target. It's like a bottomless bag, meaning you put as much in as you can. Because the more capital we invest, the easier it will be for us to conduct future investment activities. After setting up this entire model, you guys just keep doing it, a little bit every day. If the ants stay for a long time, then slowly the nest will be full. During this time, whenever you have any random source of income, immediately switch to the accumulated cash flow. Don't leave it in your everyday account for a long time, so you can spend it for a long time. Trust me, I also think I'm a very conscious person when it comes to spending, but if I put money in front of me, I'll spend it, but sometimes I don't even know what I'm spending, so I just leave it there. When I go back, it's all used up, so if it's a trick here or there, I have to move it somewhere else so it's out of sight. I even transferred it to investments that were always places I couldn't withdraw from. Similarly, when you get a salary increase, try to keep the basic spending level the same. Every year, you will have one more activity, which is to review and see if you have whether or not the need to increase this basic level depends on the inflation situation and your living needs. You just push the entire difference with the salary increase. That accumulated cash flow, and just like that you pump water pound style into this account. If the emergency is not full, put it in the emergency. When the emergency is full, it goes down to the sinking fund, and the two emergency funds and the sinking fund are full. Then you put it in the investment account. The investment account is the resource. The account has no bottom, so it has no stopping point. At this point, our stopping point is the financial freedom milestone. But that milestone is so far away that even when we get there, no one will stop. Now let's stop and look back at your lives up to this period. Basically, your life up to now has had several layers of protection. The first is that your basic living standard is fully covered by the minimum expenses. The second is the slightly longer term needs, so it already has a sinking fund to take care of. You are also ready to pay an amount of $4,000 to $8,000 for this job. And finally, the third layer of armor. In situations of extreme poverty, you also have a runway available for 6 months to 1 year to act as the final shield, and from there it gives you nothing. The space is large enough for you to manage. And personally, I believe that you guys no longer have the freedom to waste away like before. But from now on, you can live with such financial stability. It will make your mind much more comfortable. To reach this milestone, you have not yet reached the milestone of financial freedom. But it more or less opens up a lot of freedom for you guys. Suppose you work in a place that is too bad, then you always have one choice for yourself, which is to stop and spend a few months to find a new, better job. For me, that is the luxury that not everyone has. I think that such a life is much better quality than the life of having to spend every month without daring to move anything. Through this number, I hope I have helped you guys. I see that even though we may have only gone half of the journey, it has already made our lives much better, and from there we have the motivation to continue. The good news is that having reached this step is that you have basically passed the most difficult steps. From here on, everything will only get better and better. As I said from the beginning, this is the episode that I consider the most important in this series of financial freedom articles, and is also the episode that I prepared the most carefully, most of you who are watching. I think I've probably been following this podcast since the first episode. But if I could only choose one episode to recommend you guys watch, it would be this one. As long as you follow the steps in this episode, I believe your financial management aspect will improve a lot, so I really hope you guys can share your tips. This episode is for my friends, so everyone can have more insight on how to manage personal finances. Let's not talk about such lofty things as financial freedom. Just knowing how to manage personal finances, I believe it will help us a lot. In the next episode, where we have accumulated a decent amount of capital, I will share with you guys more about how to manage your investment portfolio, how to choose the right investments. The investment for it is safe and effective. Besides, we are starting to think about building other passive income sources for ourselves so that our accumulation phase is most effective. This is also the phase where we will speed up to get closer and closer to the milestone of financial freedom. But with this episode, I would like to end here. Thank you for watching, and see you again in the next episode.